One of my past videos about the Tissel Princess, which was discovered in early September 1969 in the USSR in the village of Rzavchik, Tisulsky district of Kemerovo region in a coal mine. One can argue for a long time about the age of this find. The fact that the sarcophagus itself was found in the ground, the age of which was determined by the age of 800 million years. Perhaps the sarcophagus itself was moved much later, which has caused a number of perplexities and many questions. Anyway, if you haven't seen this video, I will post a link to it in the attached comment. Today I want to tell you about a very mysterious catacombs, which are also located in Russia, in the south. In a small town Aksai in Rostov region there is a site that arouses superstitious horror among locals. It is a unique system of underground passages. The idea for this video was given to me by a friend of mine from Russia. As a cadet in the 1990s he was studying in Rostov and he had heard many times that the city clearly lacked a metro. The million-strong city was beginning to suffocate from traffic jams. At that time, there were already rumors that explained one of the reasons why the subway was not destined to be in Rostov, the underground catacombs. What are they, where did they come from, and why are they in Rostov and Aksai? In this video I will try to lift the curtain of mystery. The topic is very interesting, and it won't be possible to talk about it in one video. If the video gets 100 likes I will take off the sequel. So, you're on Wisioner channel, let's get started. The first local catacombs, dug out for cultic purposes by the inhabitants of the ancient Kobyakov settlement at the beginning of our era, the subsequent generations assiduously entangled in a network of new labyrinths. As a result, a real underground city filled with all kinds of abnormal things has spread out under the modern Aksai and its outskirts. Phantom woman, one day I look, and there is light penetrating from basement window of museum fortress. In complete bewilderment. I remember, a few minutes ago I had turned off the electricity in the basement with my own hands. I unlocked the basement door, looked down, Vyacheslav Zaporozhtsev, historian and ethnographer, began his story. He knows about the mysteries of the underground by hearsay. The cat, which followed him, ruffled his fur and rushed out of the basement with a wild howl. But the museum worker did not pay much attention to the animal's strange behavior. He was more interested in something else. Despite the flick of a switch, the light did not go out. Then the curator of collections cautiously went down into the gloomy dungeon of the customs checkpoint. The woman who wandered through the bypass gallery simply could not be there, except Vyacheslav Zaporozhtsev. No one stayed in the fortress overnight. Nevertheless, a strange person noiselessly slipped past, almost not hitting the dumbfounded museum worker. The loose black hair hid the stranger's face, but Vyacheslav Borisovich perfectly discerned her clothes, a white dress with a wide hem and an elegant corset. It was easy for a professional historian to recognize the outfit, which was worn by fashionable women of the mid-19th century. Zaporozhtsev slowly backed up, and the woman stepped into the wall and disappeared. When the keeper of the funds jumped out of the cellar, the light went out on its own. This is not the first apparition of the ghost, recalls Vyacheslav Borisovich. The woman in white has been seen here before. I saw her myself several years ago in the same gallery. Moreover, there is often a mysterious knocking sound coming from under the walls of the museum. It may be that someone's innocent and undead soul has taken up residence in our dungeons. The treasure hides a secret. However, the ghost could have easily wandered through Aksai Catacombs and into the basements of the customs house from the other end of the city. There is a notorious manhole leading directly to the Don. According to legend, the local scoundrel Yefim Kolyapiev, who in the 1860s lured wealthy travelers to his lodging, sent many victims through this hole to their last journey. He also kept the money of his victims somewhere under the local soil. Another version has it that the ghost of the fortress is connected to an elusive band of thieves who robbed passing merchants a couple of decades later. They say that the criminals hid their thieves' money in the dungeons of Aksai and entrusted the Ottoman's daughter to take care of the treasure. And maybe she fulfills her mission even after her death. Rostov historian Nikolai Karpov in his book, The Don Treasure Hunters says that in the Aksai district party committee in the 50s an old woman came who admitted that her grandfather was in the famous gang Masons and gave her the secret of the treasure. The old woman was willing to share it with the authorities on condition that she would be placed in a sex home for the elderly. At first they thought she was crazy, but when they realized the truth, she was already gone, she was too old. Another legend says that a wealthy owner of the local winery, when he went abroad, promised that he would hide some treasures in one of the wine barrels, which would ensure a comfortable living for him, his children and grandchildren upon their return. And this treasure is also supposedly guarded by a female ghost. The winemaker never returned to Russia, but his secret basement was recently found. There are still stored 4 oak barrels, the height of almost human height. Each one is filled with wine from the 1900 harvest. However, the owner of the farmstead, on whose territory such a treasure has been discovered, does not allow them to be opened. War under the ground. The military also took a close interest in the labyrinths of Aksai, which were hidden from the prying eyes. For example, near Makina Balka, which is located near the customs outpost, the fortified checkpoint and the bunker for party leaders, built in case of nuclear war, were hiding underground. Here too, until recently, secret tests of gunpowder simulators of nuclear explosions were carried out. According to eyewitnesses, such experiments were accompanied by a deafening roar and a 200-meter-high column of flame. Entire barns and houses in nearby yards went underground. Once an uncontrollable blast wave blew the hoods and roofs off the cars of the generals who came to test the cars and threw them aside 15 meters away. Occasionally heavy armored vehicles were driven out of the range, burned through, from the front armor to the stern. But that was the result of testing new shells. The tanker self-propelled vehicle was driven into the long underground passage, the heavy armored door was closed behind it, and the cannon was fired. Often the super shell, hitting its target, landed the massive door at the same time. Even more unbelievable are the rumors of military vehicles that did not return from the ground at all. They say that a top-secret laboratory located on the lower levels conducted experiments on teleportation of tanks from Aksai to the Moscow region. However, there is another explanation. The armored vehicles were lost underground by themselves, without human involvement. Actually, originally the military planned to use not the Makina Gully for their needs, but the ancient catacombs of the Kobyakov settlement. But a terrible tragedy forced to abandon this idea. It all began with the disappearance of a soldier surveying the unknown passage. The search group sent after also suffered losses. This time 2 soldiers disappeared. Later all the same searchers were found. Or rather, what was left of them, the lower parts of their bodies. Both had been cut at chest level by something extraordinarily sharp. It cut them cleanly, as if with a giant razor. The soldiers' radios were also cut by the mysterious knife. When they dismantled it, not a single crack or chip was found in the microcircuits. The cut was so precise. The further search was stopped. Information about the soldiers' deaths was classified in order to avoid spreading panic, and the engineers blew up a 100-meter-long section and walled up the dangerous tunnel completely. Soon, however, another mysterious death occurred in the dungeons. Oleg Burlikov, a local amateur researcher of catacombs, was also found cut in half. This time, however, both the lower and the upper part were found. Only from the upper part remained only bones for some reason. Recently, visiting diggers tried to walk through the Aksai Catacombs with a dog. At one of the turns the dog suddenly whimpered and rushed back in panic. The diggers retreated after her. The sight was unbelievable. The walls of the passageway, where the men had just been, began to merge rapidly back together. And then they parted back. Another time, the diggers barely had time to bounce off the collapsing floor. The collapsed passage immediately assumed its original position. All of this suggests the idea of ancient traps. But this is who they were supposed to cut, chop, and crush? It is possible that they were set to prevent something or someone from escaping from the depths to the surface of the earth. The wonders go on. The legends about creepy underground creatures of the local places also have a long history. According to ancient sources, the inhabitants of Kobyakov settlement offered human sacrifices to a certain dragon, which periodically crawled out of the bowels of the earth. The image of mysterious god lizard repeatedly meets among monuments of culture and archaeology of the European part of Russia. Academician B.A. Rybakov devoted to it the whole chapter in the book Paganism of Ancient Russia where, in particular, cites a fragment of a manuscript in which an attack of crocodiles on people is reported. The scientist does not doubt the veracity of the chronicler, complaining that modern zoology does not help us in our search for a prototype of the lizard. The unknown to science beastie was last seen in Aksai not so long ago, 9 years ago. During a landslide in the basement of a local cannery's warehouse, an underground manhole was discovered. The watchmen and their dogs looked in, but an angry growl and a huge body, moving fast in the dark, made them flee without a backward glance. The guard did not venture back until morning, and the frightened dogs stayed away from the warehouse for another week. The entrance was bricked up as a precaution. It cannot be ruled out that this mysterious Aksai Nessie crawls out, not even from under the ground, but from water. According to the geological exploration, there is an underground lake at a depth of 40 meters under Aksai, and the sea splashes at a depth of 250 meters. Under the Don River, on whose shore the town is located, there is another river. It is not a coincidence that cars and trailers, which repeatedly fell from the old Aksai Bridge, disappeared without a trace. Instead of the missing vehicles, divers discovered a bottomless sinkhole in the riverbed of the Don, where the water drags its prey with monstrous force. The divers were only saved from death by a steel safety rope. There is another mystery in Aksai. We know that according to the opinion of some ufologists, UFOs are really unidentified underground objects, which only rise into the sky for a short time. Geophysicists also agree with this. For example, Andrei Kavatov, a scientific expert of the Association Ecology of the Unknown, believes that UFOs can be ball lightning generated by tectonic processes. There was such a case, 3 ball-shaped UFOs swirled frantically around the old Aksai Bridge. The illumination was such that the traffic on the highway came to a standstill. Drivers didn't want to drive on, watch the free show with their mouths open, and the desperate policemen had to call for help from the city. Meanwhile, the hypothesis of tectonic activity, put forward by Andrei Kavatov, allows to explain some other Aksai horror stories. First of all, of course, dancing walls of catacombs, which can be the result of local underground earthquakes. And the roar of the underground dragon in this case will be quite usual for tectonically active areas' underground rumble of magma, striving to break free. And nobody knows what is more horrible, the half-mythical life of ghosts or a real earthquake, or even a lava burst from a newborn volcano in Rostov. However, no modern scientific versions still do not explain the appearance of female ghosts in the catacombs of Kobякov settlement and the mystical death of the desperate explorers of the underground galleries. One thing is clear, the ghostly mistresses of Aksai labyrinths, whether they are ghosts or reflections of the elements, will not tolerate human bustle in their domains. If you were interested, thank the author by putting a like. And also do not forget to subscribe so as not to miss the outputs of even more interesting videos of my channel. Turn on notifications by clicking on the bell and share this video with your friends. What else interesting can you add to this video? Write in the comments, it will be interesting to read.